The massive crystalline dome of the Galactic Assembly sparkled under the light of 3 suns. Inside, hundreds of alien species gathered for what would become one of the most significant meetings in galactic history. The chamber buzzed with anticipation. Today marked humanity's first official presentation to the Assembly. Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the entrance, straightening her dress uniform one final time. After 20 years of space exploration and 15 years of careful diplomatic relations, Earth was finally ready to step onto the galactic stage. Behind her stood her small delegation, Dr. Marcus Wong, Earth's leading xenobiologist, and Ambassador Diana Patel, a veteran diplomat with a gift for cross-species communication. "Remember," Sarah whispered to her team, "we're not just representing Earth. We're representing every human who ever looked up at the stars and dreamed." The massive doors swung open silently, revealing the assembly chamber in all its glory. Tiered seating rose in concentric circles around a central speaking platform, each level filled with beings of every imaginable form. Some floated in containment fields of specialized atmospheres, others sat in chairs modified for bodies far different from human norm. The sight was breathtaking. High Counselor Xerix, a towering being of crystalline structure that sparkled with internal light, raised all 4 of their limbs in welcome. "Representatives of Earth, you stand before the Galactic Assembly. You may approach." Sarah led her team down the central aisle, conscious of thousands of alien eyes studying their every move. They had trained for this moment, but nothing could truly prepare them for the reality. The weight of history pressed down on their shoulders with each step. As they reached the central platform, a deep rumbling voice cut through the chamber. "I object to these proceedings." The voice belonged to War Chief Kathax of the Drachnid Empire, a massive reptilian being whose species controlled nearly 100 systems. "Humans are barely out of their gravity well. They still fight among themselves. They are children playing at being adults." Sarah felt her heart rate spike, but years of command experience kept her face neutral. This was the moment they had prepared for, the inevitable challenge to Earth's readiness. "If I may respond, High Counselor." Sarah's voice carried clearly through the chamber. At Xerix's nod, she continued, "War Chief Kathax speaks truly. We are young. We do still struggle with internal conflicts. But it is precisely these challenges that make us worthy of standing here today." She gestured to the assembled aliens. "Look around this chamber. Every species here once stood where we stand now. Every civilization here once took their first steps into the stars. We don't claim to be perfect. We claim only to be ready to learn, to grow, and to contribute." Dr. Wong stepped forward, activating a holographic display. "In just the past century, we've gone from primitive chemical rockets to developing clean fusion drive technology. We've transformed our understanding of physics, biology, and consciousness itself. We faced planetary threats and emerged stronger, more united." Ambassador Patel added her voice, her tone warm and inclusive. "We bring fresh perspectives, untapped creativity, and most importantly, a deep desire to be part of something greater than ourselves. We don't ask for handouts or special treatment. We ask only for the chance to prove ourselves worthy of standing among you." The chamber erupted in discussion, thousands of voices speaking in hundreds of languages. High Counselor Xerix raised their limbs for silence, crystal facets glowing brightly. War Chief Kathax raises valid concerns. However, the purpose of this assembly is not to judge species by their age, but by their potential. Xerix turned their crystalline form toward the human delegation. "Humans, you seek to join an assembly that spans galaxies and encompasses civilizations older than your planet's current atmosphere. The challenges you will face will test not just your technology, but your wisdom, your adaptability, and your spirit. Are you prepared for this?" Sarah stepped forward, standing tall. "High Counselor, esteemed members of the Assembly, we are more than prepared. We are eager. Throughout human history, every time we faced a challenge that seemed insurmountable, we found a way forward. Not because we were the strongest or the smartest, but because we refuse to accept failure as an option. A new voice joined the discussion, this one belonging to Elder Engstiff of the Quantum Collective, a species that existed simultaneously in multiple dimensions. I sense great potential in these humans. They remind me of the progenitors in their early days, full of fire, full of dreams. Coming from a member of one of the Assembly's oldest civilizations, this was high praise indeed. The chamber's atmosphere shifted noticeably. War Chief Thax growled, but there was now respect mixing with the skepticism in their voice. Words are easy, human. Actions are what matter. If you join this assembly, you will be tested. Your species will face challenges that will push you to your limits and beyond. Are you prepared for this? Sarah smiled, a gesture that caused ripples of surprise through the assembly. Many species considered showing teeth to be a sign of aggression. War Chief, with all due respect, being tested, being challenged, pushing beyond our limits, that's not a warning to humans, that's an invitation. The chamber filled with the equivalent of chuckles from various species. Even Kethax's scales shifted in what might have been amusement. High Counselor Zirich's crystalline form pulsed with bright colors. Very well. By the ancient protocols of this assembly, Earth's petition for membership will be considered. You will be assigned observers from various member species. They will evaluate your civilization's readiness of the next planetary cycle of your world. Sarah and her team bowed respectfully. We accept these terms, High Counselor. Earth stands ready to prove itself worthy of joining this grand assembly. As they were led from the chamber, Sarah caught snippets of conversation from various delegates. The overall tone had shifted from skepticism to curiosity. It wasn't acceptance, not yet, but it was a start. Humanity had taken its first step onto the galactic stage, and they had done it with dignity and determination. Little did the assembly know that this was just the beginning. Humanity was about to show the galaxy exactly what they were capable of, and nothing would ever be the same. The Galactic Assembly was about to learn why humans had not just survived, but thrived on a death world, why they had turned their countless internal conflicts into stepping stones toward unity, and why their seemingly contradictory nature, simultaneously fragile and indestructible, violent and compassionate, divided and united, made them uniquely suited to join the galactic community. The stage was set, the observers would be watching, and humanity was ready to show the galaxy exactly what they could do. 3 months into Earth's probationary period, Admiral Sarah Chen found herself aboard the massive observation vessel Stellar Witness. The ship, provided by the Galactic Assembly, housed representatives from 12 different species assigned to evaluate humanity's potential. Today's demonstration would either strengthen or shatter Earth's bid for membership. The ship orbited Kepler 186f, a planet recently colonized by humans. Below, through the vessel's transparent hull, Sarah could see the gleaming domes of New Jakarta, humanity's first extrasolar colony, but the assembled aliens weren't here to observe human architecture. You claim your species can handle apex predators, rumbled War Chief Thax, who had insisted on personally overseeing this test. Today, you will prove it. Dr. Marcus Wong stepped forward, bringing up a holographic display. As requested, we've prepared a demonstration of human wildlife management techniques. The subject will be a Rimjaw Alpha, transported here under controlled conditions. Several alien observers shifted uncomfortably. The Rimjaw was notorious throughout the galaxy, a massive predator that had evolved on a high-gravity world, combining incredible strength with terrifying intelligence. Even the militaristic drachnids avoided them. Ambassador Patel noticed the tension. We understand your concerns. The Rimjaw has caused the evacuation of 3 colony attempts by other species. However, we believe we can demonstrate a different approach. On the planet's surface, a massive containment field shimmered. Inside, a creature the size of a small shuttle paced. Its 6 limbs rippled with muscle, each tipped with claws that could shred battle armor. Its elongated head housed multiple rows of serrated teeth, and its skin shifted colors like oil on water. Introducing our wildlife management specialist, Sarah announced. Dr. Maya Rodriguez. A single human figure approached the containment field. Dr. Rodriguez wore only basic protective gear, no weapons, no heavy armor. Several alien observers made sounds of distress. "This is madness," hissed an observer from the silicon consciousness. "The human will be destroyed in seconds." Carfax leaned forward, scales gleaming with interest. "Let us see." Through the observation screens, they watched as Dr. Rodriguez stopped at the edge of the containment field. She carried only a small device in one hand. The Rimjaw noticed her immediately, all four of its eyes focusing on the tiny figure. Beginning containment field reduction in 3, 2, 1. Wang's voice was steady as the barrier between human and apex predator began to fade. The Rimjaw moved with shocking speed for its size, covering half the distance to Rodriguez in a single bound. The alien observers collectively held their breath, or equivalent biological functions. But Rodriguez didn't run. She didn't even flinch. Instead, she activated her device, projecting a complex pattern of lights and sounds. The Rimjaw slowed, its head tilting in curiosity. "We studied the Rimjaw's sensory systems." Rodriguez's calm voice came through the comm system. "They're not just predators, they're highly intelligent social creatures. Their aggression comes from fear and territorial instincts, not mindless violence." The massive creature had stopped its charge, watching the patterns with all four eyes. Rodriguez slowly began to move, adjusting the pattern in response to the Rimjaw's micro-expressions. Like many Earth predators, they respond to confidence and clear communication. Running triggers their pursuit instinct, fighting triggers their combat response, but show them respect and understanding. To the absolute shock of the observers, the Rimjaw was now sitting, its color patterns shifting to match the lights from Rodriguez's device. She continued her careful approach. Most species try to control Rimjaws through force or containment, Sarah explained to the stunned audience. "We chose to understand them instead. Every predator species has its own language of sorts, body postures, pheromones, color changes. Once you learn to speak that language." Rodriguez had reached the Rimjaw. Slowly, carefully, she extended her hand. The massive creature lowered its head, allowing her to touch its scaled skin. "Impossible," whispered Carfax, but the evidence was undeniable. "This isn't just about handling dangerous creatures," Ambassador Pertl explained. "This demonstrates a fundamental aspect of humanity. We don't succeed by being the strongest or the most advanced. We succeed by understanding, adapting, and finding unexpected solutions." Dr. Wong brought up additional data displays. "We've already begun training programs for other colonies dealing with Rimjaw populations. Within a year, we believe we can help establish safe coexistence protocols." The observers were silent, watching as Rodriguez actually began guiding the Rimjaw through basic commands, the creature responding like an oversized, incredibly dangerous pet. "Your species continues to surprise," Carfax finally admitted. "Where others saw only a monster to be destroyed or contained, you saw an opportunity to learn and grow." Sarah smiled. "That's humanity in a nutshell, War Chief. We've spent our entire history living alongside predators that could easily kill us. We learned early that brute force isn't always the answer. Sometimes, understanding and respect accomplish what weapons and walls cannot." As they watched Rodriguez work with the Rimjaw, the implications weren't lost on anyone present. Humanity had just demonstrated their ability to handle one of the galaxy's most feared creatures, not through superior technology or strength, but through observation, understanding, and courage. "This demonstration will be noted in our evaluation," Carfax announced formally, but there was new respect in their voice. "Your species continues to merit attention." As the observers filed out to prepare their reports, Sarah exchanged glances with her team. They hadn't just passed this test, they'd completely rewritten the parameters of what was possible. It was another step toward proving humanity's worth to the Galactic Assembly. And somewhere in the back of her mind, Sarah couldn't help but wonder, if humans could tame the galaxy's apex predators, what else might they be capable of? The galaxy was about to find out. The emergency alert shattered the quiet of Earth's galactic embassy at 300 hours. Admiral Sarah Chen was awake instantly, years of military training kicking in as she read the urgent message scrolling across her display. Her blood ran cold. A void tear had opened near the Arcturus colony. These devastating spatial anomalies were rare but catastrophic, capable of swallowing entire worlds. And this one was heading straight for a colony of 50,000 humans and 2,000 alien residents. Status report, Sarah barked as she strode into the embassy's crisis center. Dr. Wong and Ambassador Potel were already there, along with representatives from the Galactic Assembly's observation team. The tear appeared 18 minutes ago, Wong reported, manipulating the holographic display. Current estimates give us less than 6 hours before it reaches the colony. Standard evacuation protocols would take at least 12. War Chief Kafax, who had become an unexpectedly regular presence during humanity's evaluation period, growled softly. The Assembly's emergency response fleet is 9 hours away at maximum speed. We can offer only our condolences for your loss. Sarah's eyes narrowed. With respect, War Chief, we're not writing off 52,000 lives that easily. She turned to her team. Options? Dr. Wong stepped forward. The colony's fusion reactors. If we could create a controlled cascade of fusion reactions in the upper atmosphere, it would generate a temporary gravitational lens. Ambassador Potel finished, catching on, potentially deflecting the tear's path. Theoretically possible, hummed Elder Engstith of the Quantum Collective, who had materialized in multiple dimensions simultaneously. But the timing would need to be precise to the microsecond. The energy calculations would be beyond most supercomputers. Then it's a good thing we're not using computers, Sarah replied. She hit her comm link. Get me Dr. Maya Rodriguez and patch in Colony Director Zhang. Minutes later, the crisis center was a hub of frantic activity. Rodriguez, fresh from her success with the Rimjaw project, worked with Wong to calculate atmospheric dispersal patterns. Director Zhang coordinated with colony engineers to modify the fusion reactors, and most surprisingly to the alien observers, they had recruited 12-year-old Timothy Chen, a mathematical prodigy who had been born on the colony. The human child is part of your emergency response, Kafax asked incredulously. Timothy can perform multi-dimensional calculations in his head faster than our best computers, Sarah explained. He sees mathematical patterns the way artists see colors. The boy was already deep in concentration, his fingers dancing through holographic equations as he worked with Rodriguez to fine-tune the fusion cascade timing. Even if your calculations are perfect, Elder Engstith wavered between dimensions, the precision required to execute this plan. One mistake, and you'll destroy the colony yourselves. Then we won't make mistakes, Sarah stated simply. The quiet confidence in her voice caused several alien observers to exchange meaningful glances. The next 4 hours were a blur of activity. Colony engineers worked at breakneck speed to modify the fusion reactors. Rodriguez and Timothy refined their calculations again and again. Wong coordinated with atmospheric control to prepare for the massive energy discharge. With 30 minutes until impact, Sarah made the call. Begin evacuation of the northern hemisphere. Everyone south of the equator needs to get to hardened shelters. If this doesn't work, at least some of us will survive. The alien observers watched in fascinated horror as the humans executed their desperate plan. 20 fusion reactors, never designed for this kind of operation, were pushed to their limits. Timothy called out timing adjustments with eerie calm, while Rodriguez coordinated the energy dispersal patterns. Void tear approaching final adjustment window, Wong announced. 15 seconds. Sarah took a deep breath. Timothy. The boy's eyes were closed in concentration. Wait, now. 20 fusion reactors fired simultaneously. The colony's atmosphere lit up like a newborn sun. The void tear, a pitch-black wound in space, bore down on the colony and bent. The massive spatial anomaly curved away from the colony, its path altered just enough by the gravitational lens to miss the planet entirely. The crisis center erupted in cheers, human and alien alike. Impossible, Kaffax breathed. You risked everything on unproven theories, split-second timing, and the calculations of a child. And it worked, Sarah replied simply. That's what humans do. We see impossible situations and find ways to make them possible. Ambassador Patel was already coordinating with colony authorities to check for casualties and damage. Remarkably, there were only minor injuries from the evacuation process. Your species continues to defy conventional wisdom, Elder Engstith observed, their multiple dimensional forms rippling with what might have been approval. Where others see certain doom, you see opportunities. Where others accept fate, you rage against it. We learned early in our history that impossible is often just a matter of perspective, Sarah explained. Humanity's greatest achievements have come when we refuse to accept that something couldn't be done. The events at Arcturus colony would become legendary in the annals of the Galactic Assembly. It wasn't just that humans had saved the colony, it was how they did it. Combining theoretical physics with raw talent, trusting a child's extraordinary gift alongside advanced technology, and refusing to accept defeat even when victory seemed impossible. As the crisis center slowly emptied, Sarah found Timothy sitting quietly, still running calculations in his head. "You did good, kid," she said softly. The boy looked up, his eyes still dancing with numbers. "It was just math," he shrugged. "Beautiful math." Sarah smiled, knowing that the alien observers were still watching. This, too, was humanity, the ability to do the extraordinary and then treat it as just another day's work. The void tear incident would add another remarkable chapter to humanity's evaluation. But more importantly, it showed the galaxy something vital about the human spirit. Give them an impossible problem, and they wouldn't just try to solve it, they'd rewrite the rules until it became possible. The great hall of the diplomatic exchange station hummed with tension. Two of the galaxy's most powerful species, the crystalline Axioni and the plasma-based Vorathi, stood on the brink of war. 3 centuries of territorial disputes had finally reached a breaking point, and the Galactic Assembly had called for an emergency mediation session. Admiral Sarah Chen watched from the observation deck as various species attempted to broker peace. The Axioni, their crystalline bodies refracting light in patterns of aggression, refused to communicate directly with the Vorathi, whose plasma forms pulsed with barely contained fury. "Fascinating, isn't it?" Dr. Wong murmured. 2 species so advanced they can reshape planets, yet they can't find a way to talk to each other. War Chief Kaffax, who had developed an odd sort of mentorship role with the human delegation, rumbled thoughtfully. Some conflicts run too deep for words. Ambassador Patel had been unusually quiet, studying the proceedings with intense focus. Suddenly, she straightened. "Admiral, I have an idea, but it's either brilliant or completely insane." Sarah smiled. "Those are usually our best ones. What are you thinking?" "We've been approaching this all wrong," Patel explained, growing animated. "Everyone's trying to make them communicate through traditional diplomatic channels. But look at them, they don't even perceive reality the same way we do." Dr. Wong caught on quickly. "The Axioni experience the world through crystalline resonance patterns. And the Vorathi through electromagnetic fluctuations," Patel finished. "What if we could create a new language? Not of words, but of pure sensation." Kaffax's scales shifted skeptically. "You propose to create an entirely new form of communication, in the middle of a crisis." "Actually," Sarah interjected, "we have someone who might be perfect for this." She activated her comm link. "Get me Timothy Chen." Hours later, the diplomatic hall had been transformed. Timothy, the young mathematical prodigy who had helped save Arcturus colony, stood before a complex array of equipment hastily assembled from human and alien technology. "This is madness," an Axioni elder chimed, their crystalline form vibrating with doubt. "You expect us to trust our diplomatic fate to a human child." "Watch," Sarah said simply. Timothy began to work. His fingers danced across control panels as he integrated crystalline resonance patterns with plasma wave frequencies. Mathematical equations flowed through his mind, translating emotional states into pure mathematical harmony. "The base resonance of Axioni crystal structures," he explained, his voice calm and focused, "shares a fundamental harmonic with the electromagnetic spectrum the Vorathi use for emotional expression. If we map these patterns through a 5-dimensional matrix..." Suddenly, the air in the diplomatic hall came alive with light and sound. Intricate crystal harmonies interwove with plasma pulses, creating patterns that spoke directly to both species' sensory systems. The Axioni and Vorathi representatives fell silent, transfixed by this new form of communication. "He's creating a bridge," Dr. Wong whispered in awe. "Not between languages, but between ways of experiencing reality itself." Through Timothy's mathematical translation matrix, the Axioni could finally feel the Vorathi's perspective, experiencing their territorial claims through electromagnetic emotional resonance. The Vorathi, in turn, could see the crystalline logic patterns that drove Axioni decisions. Ambassador Potel stepped forward, her voice gentle. "This is how humans solve conflicts. Not by forcing others to speak our language, but by finding new ways to understand each other." The effect was remarkable. As the two species began to communicate through this new mathematical language, centuries of misunderstanding began to unravel. What had seemed like aggressive territorial expansion to the Axioni was revealed as necessary plasma dispersion patterns for Vorathi reproduction. What the Vorathi had interpreted as hostile crystal growth was actually an automated defense response to environmental stress. "Your species continues to surprise," Kathax observed. "Where others brought threats and demands, you brought understanding. Where others saw immovable positions, you created new dimensions of compromise." Sarah watched as Timothy adjusted the harmonic patterns, fine-tuning the emotional resonance. "Humans have a long history of conflict," she explained. "We learned the hard way that true peace doesn't come from forcing others to change, but from finding ways to understand each other." As the diplomatic session continued, something unprecedented began to happen. The Axioni and Vorathi, communicating through pure mathematical harmony, began to explore solutions that neither side had considered before. Shared space corridors that could accommodate both crystal growth and plasma dispersion. Joint research initiatives to study the interaction between their unique forms of existence. "It's beautiful," Timothy said softly, his eyes still focused on the mathematical patterns flowing through his interface. "Their languages aren't really different at all. They're just different expressions of the same universal patterns." The alien observers were stunned, not just by the resolution of a centuries-old conflict, but by the method. Humans have taken what seemed like an insurmountable communication barrier and turned it into an opportunity for deeper understanding. "Your species," Elder Engstith manifested, their multiple dimensions rippling with appreciation, sees connections where others see only divisions. You transform mathematics from a tool of calculation into a language of peace. As the Axioni and Vorathi representatives began drafting a formal peace accord, written in both traditional language and Timothy's mathematical harmony, Sarah felt a surge of pride. This was humanity at its best, creative, compassionate, and unwilling to accept that any barrier was truly insurmountable. The diplomatic triumph would be recorded in the annals of the Galactic Assembly as one of the most innovative peacekeeping solutions in recent history. But for the humans present, it was simply another example of what they had always known, that understanding and empathy, combined with human ingenuity, could bridge even the widest of gaps. As the session concluded, Kathax approached Sarah. "Your evaluation period grows more interesting by the day, Admiral. First you tame our fiercest predators, then you define natural disasters, And now you create new languages of peace. One wonders what other surprises your species has in store. Sarah smiled. War Chief, we're just getting started. The message that changed everything arrived during a routine evaluation meeting. Admiral Sarah Chen watched as the color drained from Elder Engstith's multidimensional form, a sight she had never seen before and hoped never to see again. The entropy cascade has begun, the Elder announced, their usually melodic voice discordant with fear. The quantum barrier between dimensions is failing. The room erupted in chaos. The entropy cascade was theoretical doomsday scenario, a chain reaction of dimensional collapse that could unravel the very fabric of space-time. Even War Chief Kfax's scales had paled to an ashen gray. How long? Dr. Wong demanded, already pulling up holographic models. Hours, perhaps less. Engstith's form flickered between dimensions more rapidly than usual. The cascade began in the Carina Nebula. Our quantum stabilizers are failing. Once the barrier collapses completely, everything ends. Ambassador Potel finished quietly. Not just our dimension, but all of them. Sarah's mind raced. The Quantum Collective were the most advanced civilization in known space. If they couldn't stop this, what do you need? She asked simply. Engstith's form stabilized briefly. Need? Admiral, you don't understand. This is beyond any species' capability. The quantum mathematics alone would require processing power beyond anything in existence. Sarah hit her comlink. Get me Timothy Chen and Dr. Rodriguez. Now. The child again. Kfax questioned, though with less skepticism than before. Admiral, this is not a simple gravitational calculation or translation matrix. This is quantum mechanics on a scale that... With respect, War Chief, Sarah interrupted, telling humans something is impossible tends to make us very creative. Within minutes, Timothy and Dr. Rodriguez had joined them. The boy's eyes widened as he absorbed the quantum formulas spanning multiple dimensions, while Rodriguez immediately began correlating data from her Rimjaw behavioral studies. What does predator behavior have to do with this? Kfax demanded. Everything, Rodriguez replied, not looking up from her data. The Rimjaw's color-shifting abilities are actually a form of quantum camouflage. They instinctively manipulate quantum states to blend with their environment. If we could scale up that principle. Timothy was already running calculations. The Rimjaw's quantum manipulation could provide a template for stabilizing the dimensional barriers. But we need something to boost the effect exponentially. The fusion reactors from Arcturus, one suggested, if we modified them to generate quantum resonance instead of gravitational lensing. Sarah watched her team work, each bringing their unique perspective to what seemed like an impossible problem. This was humanity's greatest strength, not their individual brilliance, but their ability to connect seemingly unrelated ideas into revolutionary solutions. We'll need every Rimjaw we've worked with, Rodriguez stated. Their combined quantum field could act as a stabilization matrix. And every fusion reactor we can get our hands on, Wong added, modified to Timothy's specifications. The math will need to be perfect, Timothy said quietly. No margin for error. One miscalculation, and we could accelerate the cascade instead of stopping it. Engstith wavered between dimensions. What you propose, it's never been attempted. The coordination required between multiple species, technologies, and dimensional planes. Then it's a good thing humans are excellent coordinators, Sarah replied. She turned to Kfax. War Chief, we need the Assembly's fastest ships to transport the Rimjaws and reactors to the Carina Nebula. To everyone's surprise, Kfax barked out a laugh. Humans, you face the end of all existence, and your response is to combine predator biology, fusion technology, and child prodigy mathematics. Very well. The Drachnid fleet is at your disposal. What followed was the most ambitious coordinated effort in galactic history. Ships from every species converged on the Carina Nebula, carrying modified fusion reactors and carefully contained Rimjaws. Timothy worked non-stop, refining his calculations as Rodriguez prepared to coordinate the largest group of apex predators ever assembled. "The cascade is accelerating," Engstith warned, "their form increasingly unstable. Whatever you're going to do, it must be now." Sarah looked at her team. Rodriguez nodded, her hand resting on the head of the alpha rimjaw she'd first tamed. Wong gave a thumbs up from his station monitoring the fusion reactors. Timothy opened his eyes, numbers still dancing in their depths. "Ready," the boy said simply. "Begin quantum stabilization sequence," Sarah ordered. The next few minutes were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Hundreds of rimjaws, responding to Rodriguez's commands, began shifting their quantum camouflage in perfect synchronization. Modified fusion reactors pulsed in harmony, amplifying the effect. And through it all, Timothy's mathematical matrix guided the quantum fields, weaving them into a new kind of dimensional barrier. "It's working," Engstith breathed, their forms stabilizing. "The cascade, it's reversing." The assembled aliens watched in awe as the dimensional tear began to heal. The combination of biological quantum manipulation, human technology, and pure mathematics had achieved what should have been impossible. As the crisis passed, Kaffax approached Sarah. "Your species continues to defy explanation, Admiral. You took 3 completely unrelated things: predator biology, fusion physics, and advanced mathematics, and created a solution no one had ever imagined." Sarah smiled. "That's the thing about humans, War Chief. We don't see unrelated things. We see connections waiting to be discovered." Later, as the various ships began their journeys home, Elder Engstith manifested beside Sarah. "Your evaluation period is nearly complete, Admiral. Today's events will feature prominently in our final report." "And what will that report say?" Sarah asked. "That humans are possibly the most dangerous species we have ever encountered," Engstith replied, causing Sarah to stiffen. But then the Elder continued, "and that the galaxy would be much poorer without you. Your species sees possibilities where others see only problems. You create harmony from chaos, hope from despair. You are exactly what the Assembly needs." Looking out at the now stable quantum barriers of the Carina Nebula, Sarah felt a surge of pride. Humanity had faced its greatest test yet, and they had passed not through overwhelming force or superior technology, but through their unique ability to see connections, inspire cooperation, and refuse to accept defeat. The galaxy would never be the same, and that perhaps was exactly what it needed. On the eve of humanity's final evaluation, the Galactic Assembly chambers were filled with an electric anticipation. Representatives from every member species had gathered to witness the unprecedented, a species completing their evaluation period without a single failure. Admiral Sarah Chen stood with her team, awaiting the High Council's arrival. Dr. Wong was reviewing their mission logs one final time, while Ambassador Patel engaged in quiet conversation with various alien delegates. Timothy Chen, now officially recognized as humanity's youngest xenomathematics expert, sat cross-legged in a corner, equations dancing through his mind. "Something's wrong," Dr. Rodriguez murmured, her years of predator behavior study making her sensitive to subtle changes in atmosphere. The council members, they're too tense. Before Sarah could respond, High Councillor Xerix materialized in the chamber, their crystalline form pulsing with unusual patterns. War Chief Kaffax and Elder Engstith appeared at their side, along with the other council members. "Representatives of Earth," Xerix's voice resonated through the chamber. "Your evaluation period has been remarkable. You have demonstrated innovation, courage, and wisdom beyond our expectations. However," Sarah felt her heart sink at that word. There was always a however. "We have one final test," Xerix continued. "One that will determine not just your membership in the Assembly, but potentially the future of all spacefaring civilizations." The chamber's lighting dimmed, and a holographic display materialized in the center of the room. It showed a massive object moving through deep space, something that defied normal physics. "We call it the anomaly," Elder Engstith explained, their multidimensional form rippling with concern. It appeared at the edge of known space 3 cycles ago. Our best scientists estimate it will reach the core worlds within 1 standard year. Dr. Wong stepped forward, his eyes scanning the readings. It's consuming energy. All forms of energy, and growing. Correct, Kathax growled. It absorbs everything: light, heat, radiation, even the quantum energy between dimensions. Thousands of worlds lie in its path. We have tried everything in our power to stop or divert it. Nothing has worked. Sarah studied the hologram carefully. And this is our final test. To stop an unstoppable object that the combined knowledge of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations couldn't solve. Yes, Zurich stated simply, because if anyone can find a solution, we believe it will be humans. The chamber erupted in murmurs. It was unprecedented for the High Council to express such faith in an unevaluated species. You have demonstrated an unique ability to see connections but others see only chaos, Engstith explained. You combine technologies, ideas, and perspectives in ways we would never consider. We need that perspective now more than ever. Timothy had risen from his corner, his young face intense with concentration as he studied the anomaly's patterns. It's not consuming energy, he said suddenly. It's transforming it. Dr. Rodriguez moved closer to the hologram, her eyes narrowing. The pattern, it reminds me of something. The way it moves through space, it's like a rimjaw stalking its prey. That's because it's alive, Dr. Wong breathed, his fingers flying over his datapad. Not life as we know it, but some form of energy-based consciousness. Sarah watched as her team began to work, each bringing their unique perspective to the problem. Timothy's mathematical genius, Rodriguez's understanding of predator behavior, Wong's scientific insight, and Patel's gift for communication, all focusing on what seemed like an impossible challenge. The rimjaws, Rodriguez continued, excitement building in her voice. They don't just camouflage themselves, they adapt their energy signature to match their environment. What if this entity is doing the same thing on a cosmic scale? But why? Patel wondered. What would make an energy-based life form consume everything in its path? Timothy's eyes lit up. Fear, he said simply. Look at the pattern of consumption. It's not random. It's defensive. It's surrounding itself with consumed energy like a shield. Of course, Wong exclaimed. It's protecting itself from something. Every time we've tried to stop it, we've attacked it with energy weapons, which it perceives as threats. We've been making it more defensive, more aggressive. Sarah turned to the council. We need to try something completely different. Instead of trying to stop it or destroy it, we need to communicate with it. Communicate with a cosmic entity that consumes entire star systems. Kathax's scales rippled with disbelief. Why not? Sarah challenged. We communicated with crystalline beings through plasma waves. We helped quantum beings understand 3-dimensional species. Why can't we find a way to talk to an energy-based life form? The next hours were a blur of activity. Timothy and Wong worked to create a mathematical model of the entity's energy patterns. Rodriguez applied her knowledge of predator psychology to understand its behavioral patterns. Potter coordinated with various species to gather data on different forms of energy communication. We need every fusion reactor we can get, Sarah announced. But not for attack, for communication. Timothy, can you translate emotional patterns into pure energy wavelengths? The boy nodded, already working on the calculations. Like the crystal plasma translation matrix, but on a quantum scale. We'll need the rimjaws again. Their ability to manipulate quantum states will help modulate the signal. The council watched in amazement as the humans once again combined seemingly unrelated elements into something entirely new. Fusion reactors were modified to generate specific energy patterns. Rimjaws were positioned to help manipulate the quantum field, and at the center of it all, Timothy's mathematical matrix translated basic concepts, peace, safety, cooperation, into pure energy. As their message was broadcast toward the anomaly, the chamber held its breath. For long moments, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the entity's energy consumption pattern began to change. "It's responding," Wang reported excitedly. "The energy absorption is becoming more rhythmic, more deliberate." Through Timothy's translation matrix, they began to understand. The entity was ancient, alone, and terrified. It had fled from something in its own dimension, seeking refuge in our universe. Its consumption of energy wasn't aggression, it was an attempt to hide itself. Over the next several hours, through careful energy pattern communication, they learned more. They offered help, understanding, and most importantly, an alternative to fear. The entity, gradually convinced it was no longer alone, began to release its stored energy. Remarkable, Xerx's crystalline forms sparkled with appreciation. "Where we saw only destruction, you saw a frightened being. Where we responded with force, you offered compassion." As the crisis resolved, with the entity now peacefully cooperating with the assembly to find a safe haven, Kaffax approached Sarah. "Your species has passed every test we've given you," the war chief admitted. "But more importantly, you've shown us new ways to solve problems we thought unsolvable, new ways to understand things we thought incomprehensible." Sarah smiled. "That's what humans do best, war chief. We don't just find solutions, we find connections. Between species, between ideas, between ways of thinking. And in those connections, we find hope." The High Council convened one final time. Their decision was unanimous. Humanity would be welcomed into the Galactic Assembly not just as members, but as teachers. Their unique perspective, their ability to connect disparate ideas, and their unflagging determination to find solutions would help lead the galaxy into a new era of understanding and cooperation. As Sarah looked at her team, the scientist, the ambassador, the predator expert, and the young mathematical genius, she felt a surge of pride. They had shown the galaxy not just what humanity could do, but what humanity could be, a bridge between different ways of thinking, a force for understanding in a universe of diversity. The stars seemed a little brighter that day, as if reflecting the hope of a future where differences weren't barriers to be overcome, but opportunities to be embraced. 10 years after humanity's admission to the Galactic Assembly, Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the podium of the newly constructed Terran Academy of Interstellar Relations. The massive structure, built on Luna, represented everything humanity had achieved in their first decade as full Assembly members. The graduation ceremony today was special. The first class of mixed-species students was about to complete their training. Sarah smiled as she looked out over the audience. Crystalline Axioni sat beside plasma-contained Vorathi, their ancient conflict now a case study in resolution through understanding. Drachnid warriors shared space with quantum beings, while dozens of other species filled the hall. When humanity first stood before the assembly, Sarah began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber, we were seen as young, untested, perhaps even dangerous. Today, I see the proof that we were all of those things, and that those very qualities were exactly what the galaxy needed. Timothy Chen, now a tall 22-year-old and the Academy's youngest professor, sat in the front row. Beside him, Dr. Rodriguez was surrounded by a group of smaller rimjaws, the first generation born in cooperative harmony with other species. Dr. Wong and Ambassador Patel watched from the side, their original team still intact after all these years. In our first decade as Assembly members, Sarah continued, we've seen changes that once seemed impossible. The Rimjaw Diplomatic Corps now serves as intermediaries in high-tension situations, their natural ability to read energy patterns making them invaluable peacekeepers. The Quantum Crystal Translation Matrix, first developed for a single crisis, has revolutionized interspecies communication across the galaxy. War Chief Kaffax, now a regular lecturer at the Academy, rumbled in agreement. The Drachnid Empire had transformed under his leadership, their warrior culture evolving to embrace strategy and diplomacy alongside traditional strength. But our greatest achievement, Sarah gestured to the graduating class, sits before us today. Young minds from across the galaxy, learning not just to coexist, but to thrive together. Each bringing their unique perspective, their species' wisdom, their individual brilliance to create something greater than the sum of its parts. The energy entity, which they had communicated with years ago, now had representatives in the Academy. They appeared as shimmering patterns of light, their presence a reminder that understanding could bridge even the most alien of gaps. We've learned that the greatest discoveries often come not from superior technology or advanced knowledge, but from the simple willingness to see things differently, Sarah continued. A child's mathematical genius combined with ancient predator instincts. Fusion technology merged with quantum biology. These combinations, once thought impossible or irrelevant, have opened doors we never knew existed. Timothy stood, activating a holographic display that filled the chamber. It showed the countless breakthroughs that had emerged from human-alien cooperation, new forms of space travel based on rimjaw quantum shifting, revolutionary medical treatments combining Vorathi plasma manipulation with human cellular biology, and environmental restoration techniques that had saved dozens of dying worlds. But perhaps our most important lesson, Sarah's voice softened, was one humanity learned long ago on Earth: that our differences are not obstacles to be overcome, but strengths to be celebrated, that the most powerful force in the universe is not technology or knowledge or even energy, it's understanding. Eldert Engstith manifested in multiple dimensions, their form now stable thanks to human-inspired quantum mathematics. You have taught us well, friends. Where we saw barriers, you saw bridges waiting to be built. And you have taught us equally well, Sarah responded, the wisdom of ancient species tempered by the enthusiasm of the young, the precision of crystalline thought enhanced by the fluidity of plasma consciousness. We are all teachers, all students, all explorers in this vast universe. Ambassador Pertol stepped forward, her diplomatic skills now legendary across the assembly. Today's graduates represent a new era in galactic civilization. They don't just understand different species, they understand different ways of understanding. They don't just solve problems, they redefine what's possible. The graduation ceremony concluded with a display that would have been unthinkable a decade ago. Rinjaws performed intricate quantum dances while energy entities created symphonies of light. Crystalline beings resonated in harmony with plasma wavelengths. Human mathematics merged with alien art to create patterns of indescribable beauty. Later, as the celebration continued, Sarah found herself standing with her original team, watching the diverse crowd of graduates and their families. Did you ever imagine this? Dr. Wong asked, gesturing to the scene before them. When we first stood in the assembly chamber, did you think we'd end up here? Sarah smiled, remembering those early days. Honestly? No. I hoped we'd prove ourselves worthy of membership. I never dreamed we'd help reshape the very nature of galactic society. That's because you're human, Klax approached, scales gleaming with amusement, always underestimating your own potential while overachieving anyway. Timothy, who had grown from a brilliant child into a remarkable young man, joined them. We didn't reshape society, he corrected. We just helped everyone see the patterns that were already there, the connections that always existed, waiting to be discovered. Dr. Rodriguez laughed as one of her rimjaw companions nuzzled her affectionately. And now look at us, humans, predators, warriors, and energy beings all working together. Learning together, growing together. This is just the beginning. Ambassador Potter's eyes sparkled with excitement. Think of what the next generation will achieve. These graduates see possibilities we haven't even imagined yet. As the celebration continued into the night, Earth's lights visible through the Academy's vast windows, Sarah felt a profound sense of satisfaction. Humanity had not just found its place among the stars, they had helped create a new kind of galactic community. One where differences were strengths, challenges were opportunities, and the impossible was just another problem waiting for a creative solution. The stars seemed brighter somehow, as if reflecting the combined light of countless civilizations working together. And somewhere out there, New challenges waited, not as threats to be feared, but as opportunities to prove once again that understanding, creativity, and cooperation could overcome any obstacle. The future was unwritten, full of endless possibilities, and that, perhaps, was humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy, the ability to look into the unknown not with fear, but with hope, curiosity, and the unshakable belief that together, anything was possible.